Welcome back. Quick, what's the difference between the gross national product and the gross domestic product, and why should we care? Lucky for us, we have USF Sarasota Manatee economics instructor Michael Snipes here to explain. Michael.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of nice because it does actually kind of apply to what you were talking about during the roundtable discussion. And so when we're talking about kind of these two big measures of the size of the economy, what they really try to do with gross domestic product and gross national product is really try to measure the size of the economy, but they do it in different ways. So when you're thinking about gross domestic product, what we're talking about generally is where was the thing produced? And if we're talking about gross national product, then we're talking about who was the one that actually produced it. So, for example, let's say that Apple builds a phone in the United States, and we want to see how does that change GDP versus GNP. Well, because it was produced in the United States, it's going to increase GDP. And because it was an American company who built it, that would also increase GNP. Because again, it was American in America, that increases both GDP and GNP. But let's say that instead of Apple, let's say that it was Nokia, who is a Finnish company, and they build a phone in the US. And we want to know how that affects GDP versus GNP. Well, because it was produced in the United States, that is going to increase GDP. But when we're talking about GNP, it was somebody from Finland or a Finnish-owned company that produced it. That will actually have no effect on GNP. And so why this matters is because it can give us a sense as to kind of where a country produces things. So if we look at a country like China, China generally has a GDP that is bigger than its gross national product, and that's generally an indication that they have a lot of foreigners producing in their country. And if we look at a country like the United States, generally speaking, the GNP is going to be greater than the GDP, and what that's an indication of is that, generally speaking, American companies tend to build more outside of the country. So it's a way to, again, the objective is to try and measure how big an economy is, but we do it in slightly different ways. You know, where is it being produced versus who is the one who's producing it? And it's useful because it gives us a sense as to kind of where exactly all of this production is taking place.
And in terms of where we are at right now, what does the trend in terms of both the GDP and GNP tell us where the American economy is at?
They tend to trend in similar directions, right? Because again, the idea is to measure the size of the economy. So they tend to trend in similar directions. And both GDP and GNP are increasing. Because again, they're both at least somewhat trying to track exactly how much production is taking place. But like we talked about last week, when we were talking about GDP, you always have to be careful of these because we can get increases in GDP, we can get increases in GNP, not only through production, but we can also get it through increases in prices.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. Michael Snipes joins us every Thursday to discuss the world of economics. And when we return, we'll have a final look at your first alert weather, plus more questions on money allegedly sent to President Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. So stay with us.